Hey, how you doing? If you're like me, you've pretty much been socially conditioned to respond to this with something like, I'm doing well, how about yourself? Or, I'm pretty good. But today, I'd like to ask the question, what if we were honest when people asked us how we were doing? Hey everyone, my name's Tristan Verstappen, and I have a lot to say about many things. I've thought about this question for a while now, and largely that's because I've noticed that it's just such a common occurrence where you ask people how they're doing, and especially here in America, we really use it often as just a form of saying hello, just acknowledging somebody's existence. But we're not really asking how somebody is doing. To the point where people will literally, I do this myself, many people do, literally people just go like they'll walk past someone else and they'll just be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they'll be like, "Hey," and they're not answering the question, obviously, but they're acknowledging that you said something to them. It's really weird how this looks, especially on the outside. And I don't know if this is just like me overthinking the situation or what have you, but in any case, I really like to explore the idea of if we were honest, what would that look like? And why is it that such a common expression has turned into what it has? Like, ultimately, when we ask somebody, how are you doing? Again, really, we're just using it as an alternative to hello. And in certain spaces, obviously that makes sense. We really kind of just use it and the response to it as a way to just not really rock the boat. We just want to kind of keep things pretty chill and just kind of say, I'm doing okay, as a way to respond to the question. I'm doing good, I'm doing well, something like that, right? Um, Me personally, when I ask somebody how they're doing, I legitimately want to know. But I'm well aware that in settings like office spaces, for example, you'll come across employees, and I did this all the time, where they would always ask me how I was doing. And for me personally, I wasn't doing well. See, for me, 2018 was a really bad year. In the course of only a couple months, I lost my girlfriend, my mother, who had not raised me, but given birth to me, and I was still very close with. That's a story for another time, though. I lost my job that I had at the time, which was like the only way I could afford to live where I was living, and the roommates that I had where I was living were turning our house into a trap house. All around, it was a really bad time for me. So, when I had gotten this new job, and people would ask me, how are you doing? I began to respond with, I'm doing alright. I'm doing alright. Now, why did I say this? Well, for one reason, I didn't want to say that I was doing well, or even that I was doing good, because both of those would be outright lies. But I knew I couldn't actually get into how I was doing, I couldn't say how, oh man, it was really a struggle to get up this morning. It was awful. Oh, how was your weekend? While I did nothing but lay in bed being depressed all weekend, I can't tell them that. So, you end up in this situation where generally dishonesty is almost maybe not expected, but at least encouraged. Even though it's a very light form of dishonesty, it's still dishonesty. So anyway, I would say I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. More specifically, I'd say it, and it became so commonplace where I worked that people would kind of like jokingly, in a fun way, kind of mock me for, where they'd be like, they'd ask me how I'm doing, and they'd like know that I'm going to respond. They'd like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right, and that's normally how I would respond. But again, why is this what I said? Well, for one, I didn't want to lie and say that I was doing well or good. But why did I say it twice? Well, one of the times was for them, and the other time was for me. For me, a constant self-reassurance of, I'm doing all right, is acknowledging that, man, things could really be better, but they could also be worse. I think it's fascinating how people respond to questions like this, how people's body language and tone change, and all sorts of different stuff. And me being a very perceptive person as I am, I just notice these things. If somebody tells me that they will be okay, or their tone is different than it would be a day before, I notice these kind of things. I notice body language, all of this stuff. Maybe that's because of the things that I've been through myself, so since I'm so in tune with my own emotions and everything, I'm in tune with others as well. Take that as you will. That is probably part of it, though I won't deny that. But in any case, when I ask people how they're doing, I'm genuinely asking. And when I ask you, as I will right now, how are you doing? I'm genuinely asking. I understand that in many settings it isn't really appropriate to express how you're actually feeling on a given day about certain issues, so on and so forth. You have to keep everything neat and tidy so that it sticks to the status quo and people can move on with their lives. Even though you opening up about things that you're going through may very well help other people. That's not what jobs are for. That's not necessarily, that might be, at least to an extent, what going out in kind of a social event would be, like even going to a bar or something like that. But I understand that not everybody can get out, therapy can be expensive, so on and so forth. I do genuinely believe that if there's anything you're struggling with, you should absolutely talk to somebody who legitimately wants to listen. And if they don't, well, they're not really worth your time, at least not in this regard. They might be worth your time in other ways, but not in that situation at least. I understand that there aren't many settings to just kind of vent about how you feel. I remember I even posted in the subreddit of r/vent, I was venting about something, and I was told I was complaining. And I was like, huh, imagine that, somebody venting in r/vent. So there are different spaces and stuff where it's just not safe. It's not accepted to talk about how you're feeling. But I hope it's understood that my comments, my social media pages, are safe spaces for you guys to talk about whatever you want to. I think if we were honest, if most people were honest about how they're genuinely doing, how they're feeling, about anything and everything, most people would realize that they're not alone. When you open up about an issue that you're dealing with to a close friend, or you start researching something you're going through online and you look at it maybe on Reddit or some other forum, or you see YouTube videos about it, or Instagram posts, whatever it may be, TikToks, whatever. When you see these things and you see, hey, someone else is going through the same kind of thing that I am, not only is it incredibly validating, but you can realize that, hey, your story, your experience, things that you've gone through that you thought only you were going through, you can use those to benefit other people. Because if you think you're alone in some situation, other people probably do too. So I just encourage that, not so much when people ask you necessarily, how are you doing? Unless you're in a intimate environment in some way, maybe you're with a close friend or what have you, and they're asking you genuinely, how are you doing? That might be an appropriate time, but unfortunately, obviously, the work setting is not an appropriate time to respond and kind of pour out all your baggage to somebody else. But I do encourage you that when you ask somebody, how are you doing? You do your best to make it known that you legitimately care. You really want to know how they're doing. And if you're open with them, you're willing to listen, who knows? You could make their whole day, and for some people, their whole week, month, maybe even their life. You don't know what kind of positive impact you can have on somebody just by being someone who genuinely cares and is willing to listen to what is going on with them. So, with all of that in mind, as always, these are just my thoughts. But let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more, subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date, leave a like if you like, and if not, I genuinely hope you find something you do like. And please, be kind to each other in the comments, whether it be here, my social media, anybody's social media. Just be kind online and in life in general. Later, guys. Peace and love.